Thanks, Tom.
So I'm Tom Clausen, if you don't know. Kathy Fuchs made the comment based on the data that's been collected that there's a very large number of steps and large number of pieces of paper and many points of delay for people transitioning from a hospital to home care or to a nursing home. So I'd like to know from each of Kathy and Paul what you're doing in your region to try and simplify the process from what Kathy just described.
Well, I can start in mine. We're part of the FLOW projects that's been funded by the ministry through the Ontario Health Performance Improvement Initiative. And I was actually quite surprised that you had so little steps, because we had 258 and 242 were non-value added in ours, and we had 36 databases and a whole bunch of other. Our figures were actually much worse. And what we did, though, was we went through a Kaizen event, a value stream analysis, and implored the methods that are used through lean technology, the Toyota way, and started to get our frontline staff together to really talk about this. We also walked 16 kilometers, you might want to know, to get someone out. And what we've done is we've been able to get that down to about 18 value-added steps and remove the 242 non-value-added steps. And we think the 18 were still left there because those 18 people weren't in the room, and we couldn't get rid of them without them being there. But we've continued to do that. And I think it's by building the relationship between the hospital and the community. And I said destination determinators. I almost went out and bought white lab coats for my staff and put destination determinator on. Because when we were getting the phone call was at the time someone was ready for discharge, as opposed to when they came into the hospital, because my staff very rightly had said, well, is the patient stable? And if the patient wasn't stable, we weren't going to put a lot of work effort into getting ready for someone to go home. If the chance was they weren't going to go home, they were going to go to a complex continuing care unit, a rehab hospital, or they were on their way up to the OR to get a spinal tap because they were potentially meningitis. So I think just by putting the people together in the room, we had some 40 people on the first process that worked together. We had our care providers, we had the ambulance, we had hospital staff right across the organization and our staff. And we worked out and came to agreement on, by the end of the 4 days, how many steps should be in the process, what were the right steps to be in the process, and implemented. The work happened on that floor, in that hospital, on that day. I'm pleased to say that we were able to reduce the time from the time we were notified of a client to having to go somewhere else to the time they actually went somewhere else. We reduced it by 79%. And we're holding that gain. That started last September, and we've kept it. We keep going back and looking at it. We also did some very innovative things. We have something now called Walker Mart, which we set up a cupboard on the floor in the hospital, and we pay for the equipment, the CCAC, for people to pick up their walkers, their canes, their raised toilet seats, whatever equipment they need to go home and be independent they take that home with them, because there was a delay in the time that equipment arrived from the time they got there and the nurse got there, and that was all a big mess. What was interesting, we set up Walker Mart in one of our hospitals here. A hospital down Sarnia Way took all the equipment out of the hospital and delivered it at the home. So the same processes don't always work the same way in different geographies. Working with different people, it's what you agree to do will make the best sense. Because what the hospital found was they were losing walkers. People were getting extra walkers. We'd get to the home, there would be 3 walkers there, the one that we ordered and one that the son brought home and the one that the person took home with them from their room. Everybody wanted to make sure they had the right equipment, right? So what we've tried to do is streamline that and take that out. And we have now done that with 2 of our other hospitals, done it with our community providers. We've had a Doorways to Care value stream analysis and Kaizen event to get us all agreeing we're going to do work for each other. So it's the whole concept of it's not about where they are right now. It's about where did they come from, where they're going to go, and how do we best meet their needs. So we've moved through that. And that's thanks to the ministry and some of the funding that they got us started on that.
The example that Kathy gave earlier was in the Southeast, so it was our area. And we benefited from that process. It was very helpful, and it's one of about 12 components to this initiative that we have in trying to change the ALC situation in the Southeast. And we have a very serious ALC situation. Not all of those should be transferred to long-term care homes, that's for sure. And in fact, we need to not rely on long-term care homes. We have an occupancy rate of, I think, 99.8% in our long-term care homes in southeastern Ontario. And probably there's some inappropriate placements that you're not going to change at that point. But we also we're a community that's probably the oldest in the province. We have, I think, average age over, or the percent over 65 is over 16%, so it's quite large. But we have, apparently, if you look at the statistics and the ratios, we have enough long-term care beds. However, we have 352 new long-term care beds coming on board in a year and a half. We want to have some major changes occur with the transfer of patients to long-term care beds, to home, to really move people out of ALCs way before those beds open. Because if not, the beds will become the new crutch, and we won't change anything. We'll fill up those beds, and the next day we'll have ALC rates of back up to 14, 15, 16%. So we have these number of initiatives underway right now, or I guess it's one initiative with about 12 components to it. And we're not as far as what Kathy has said, and we haven't really looked at a specific Toyota-type process. But we are making some changes, and we are changing some behaviors, and we are getting long-term care to look at different approaches and to speed up their process. We've had some feedback from long-term care that it takes us 2 days to process a patient, or we can't process a patient on a Friday. You have to wait till a Monday. So we're dealing with all those type of things, and we are changing. Those things are changing. But it's requiring to have the right people in the room, and not just the people from long-term care, but people from home care, from CCAC, from the hospital, etc., and having the right people in the room, and again, through some type of process, bringing the intellectual power that we have in our system to bear to address this issue. And I think the peer, I'll say peer support, but it's probably more peer pressure. They start really changing attitudes and say, yes, we can do this. And there's a eureka type of experience, I think, that occurs, and we find ways of improving this. So I think it's really bringing the right people to the table.
Are there other comments, questions? Michael.
Yes, Mike Thilburn, Ontario Medical Association. Kathy, you've made a great start here in an incredibly difficult area. What's your vision for next steps, and how do you see incorporating family doctors out in the community into some of those steps?
This was not a setup question, honest, because I have an answer. We're going to continue to do more focus group work with patients and caregivers, but we're going to look at probably mental health population, kids with special needs, and some multicultural groups, because I think we're going to find different, like similar but some different issues. But we are going to have a big push in year 2 of the strategic plan to talk to providers, and particularly clinicians, probably through a large survey rather than focus group. But we absolutely need to get their perspective on the same set of questions, and then we're going to put them side by side and see whether it's the same sense of disconnects or different. But it is pretty much the agenda for year 2.